Hefty fucking title. I agree. The most important video perhaps ever. But I'm not talking bollocks, or I'm not bullshitting you here. I want you to pay attention to this, because this is important. I've made hundreds and hundreds of videos on this channel. It's on all kinds of topics over the years. But I don't know why, but I've had a certain epiphany lately. Something has been on my mind a lot for reasons I don't know, okay? But it's there. Now, you know me, I'm not a scaremonger. I'm not Mr. The end of the world is coming. I don't buy that Christian apocalyptic thing. I believe no matter what would happen on this earth, even the worst case scenario, as a pagan, nature would start again, and so would humans would start again, just like they did 12,000 years ago, as Graham Hancock tells us. Now, let me apply a scenario for you. You're driving home from work one day. No, just say you're driving to work. You're driving to work, right? You're listening to the radio, whatever shit music you're into. You look across, there's a woman over there bringing her kid to school. There's a man over there thinking of the secretary in the office he wants to bang. And life is continuing as it is in the 21st century. Suddenly, the radio goes off, the car dashboard indicator lights go off, and the car rolls to a stop. You look around and you go, shit, it's broken down, the car. But then you look outside and you see everyone else is going like this. Cars ain't moving. Turning the ignition key. Pressing the button. This. Then they start looking at each other with their jaws opened. They get out of their cars. You get out of your car. You pick up your mobile phone or your device. Cell phones, as Americans call them. You go to call somebody, there's no signal. Everyone around you is like this. You're all standing in shock, looking at each other in a world of silence. In the distance, you notice one or two people running away. Just closing the car, getting what they need from it, and scarpering. And that's probably because they've watched this video and remember what I said on it, or they're aware of this already. But at that moment, a new term enters into the minds of these normies, a new phrase that they probably never heard before, and that's called a coronal mass ejection. You can sit there talking about the end times. You can sit there talking about Jesus coming back on Judgment Day, the Dajjal of the Islamic world, the Antichrist. You could be a cult member waiting for comet clusters to come along and blast you into the fourth density as you evolve into a spiritual being, like your cult leader says, or the spaceships to come. Just another version of Christianity. Or you can remember and read your history and know that in the 1870s, I think it was, that all the telegraph systems in the United States and in the Americas as a whole died. And they died because of a coronal mass ejection. An enormous blast of electromagnetic energy from the sun, which happens on a regular basis, but has not happened since then. Not to that extent. The coronal mass ejection is overdue. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 99 years. But I guarantee you it will probably almost certainly happen in the next century. So if you're a young person with young children, pay special attention. The coronal mass ejection comes out of the sun like this. A blast reaches its peak like a sine wave, closes and flies through the solar system. Planet Earth, coronal mass ejection hits it. Destroys the magnetosphere on this completely, but that will repair itself in about 24 hours because of the rotation of the Earth. And then the debris and the tail tapers off to the back and heads into the rest of the solar system. If you're in a plane on this side of the Earth, on the daylight side of the Earth, what will happen is your plane will fall out of the sky. Everything from the electronic systems controlling the hydraulics to the engine are all run with microprocessor. Every aircraft on Earth will tumble out of the sky on the daylight side and partially on the dawn and dusk side where the Terminator is. will fall out of the sky. If you're on a ship on the ocean, the engines will stop and it will just suddenly taper along. And you'll say to yourself, well, that's not so bad. It's better than falling out of the sky. Those tens of thousands of aircraft that fell out of the sky. No, if you're in the middle of the ocean and you don't find land within a couple of days or maybe a week or so, the ballast pumps in the ship is controlled by electronic processors, and it will fill with water and you will sink to the bottom of the ocean along with the oil, the cruise ship, the containers, the stuff coming from Banggood or Wish.com or Amazon to the bottom of the ocean. So you better have a good lifeboat. That's what's going to happen. Every electronic device built probably after the 1950s will fail. And many of the ones built before the 1950s will fail as well if they're not properly shielded. But by that I mean inside a metal case or inside a garage with a metal roof. That's the clue to how to survive a coronal mass ejection. Anything like that, including any car built before 1990, is useless. So ironically, people will have old cars that they've kept. You know, the people, you remember the people who made fun of that had the Chevy Impala? Remember that? He's an imp, he's an idiot, or a gremlin. Well, their cars will work fine if they're kept in a garage and they've maintained them and looked after them. All the old heritage cars will work fine. An old tractor will work fine. An old Massey Ferguson or an old Ford tractor or an old Ford pickup truck will work. Anything that does not have an integrated circuit of any kind. The first microprocessors, the ICs from ITT, started entering into consumer electronics in the early 1970s, but they didn't really get into everything until about the late 70s, early 80s. Everything that has a processor or an integrated circuit, an IT chip, will be gone because they will be destroyed. The internet will be destroyed on this side of the world. However, the ones on the nighttime side of the world will be safe for a while. Now, it creates scenarios here. The ones on the nighttime, ironically, it's kind of like you bring the metaphor, the shadow into it. They will be the ones who will survive just because they're on the other side of the sun. So pray God that when you're, unless you're a flat earther, you don't believe it, that when the earth rotates, that you're on the nighttime side of the earth when the coronal mass ejection happens. Okay? Because your plane won't fall out of the sky. Chances are most of your electronics will survive. Probably your internet will be gone for a long time, but the servers on this side of the world will be fine. This will also give that side of the world enormous military, technological, political, and other kinds of cultural and social power that's been lost on the daylight coronal mass ejection hit side. Remember that. This will be your new god. Who is ever at night will be your new god. Doesn't matter if you're United States here and China here. Doesn't matter. If Iceland is here, Iceland is now your god. America, China, remember that. They'll have shit that you don't have. That's how serious it is. Now, and a coronal mass ejection is not the end of the world. There are ways to survive. Please pay attention. Now, prepping, fine. Okay, but who will be the first ones to be killed in a prep? Who'll be killed? Well, Bubba and Goober, who has their YouTube channel showing how much food and gasoline and stuff they prepped. You think people don't remember where you live and who you are? You will be, for you and your narcissism, attention seeking, and telling people how much you have stored up. Your house will be descended upon first. If you live in a city, get out of the city temporarily. Get out of it. Okay. Do not use the roads. Do not use the roads. Walk along railroad lines. These are much safer than the roads. Every animal, every moron, every troglodyte, every NCP whose vegan diet has failed because they've nothing to eat and now turned to cannibalism, NPC, have now turned to cannibalism, will be stalking the roads and the streets looking for whatever they can eat. And that will include you and your children after a while. Move along the railway lines. Have a place ready in the countryside. Know how to get there via the railway lines. Travel at night. This sounds like a joke, but this is what will keep you alive. This kind of thinking is what kept people alive during the Black Death and other similar things. The people, your descendants were the ones who survived the previous mass coronal mass ejection 12,000 years ago that wiped out all the ancient world, the ones that Graham Hancock and the rest talk about. It's coming again. I can feel it. I don't know why. I can feel it. I'm not scaremongering. I'm just telling you how this will be. The coronal max ejection will not kill you. Civilization will kill you, because civilization is like a toxic relationship in many ways. When it's good for you, it goes great. When it fails, it will destroy you. If you have a home and if you have stuff stocked up, old cars in the garage. This is why the British kept steam locomotives in, and probably still do, along with the Swedes and the Russians, inside vats of oil in case of a nuclear attack. The most basic technology will survive. If you have an analog radio, keep it in a biscuit tin in the garage. This kind of thing. It's not that difficult. Or down the basement. You'll have a good chance down in the basement as well. Modern houses are actually at an advantage because they have, along with the insulation, they have aluminium lining on the insulation. And that will give a lot of protection. But it doesn't matter if you have a laptop indoors, it will still be wiped out. Also, all the phone lines. You see, when the one happened in the 1800s, what happened was the relay stations on the telegraph systems were destroyed. You had the guy going dick 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 in the Morse code. Now that goes so far and then goes to a relay, which picks that signal up, goes dick 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 even louder to the next one. A relay is a coil, and they were very bulky, bulky relays. The coil fails and seizes up, and its magnetic properties to create a north and south magnetic thing that causes a tapping fails. Okay, that's basic electronics. It doesn't matter that from a coil, from a magnetic coil all the way up to a transistor, all the way up to a resistor, up to a capacitor, up to an integrated circuit, into a diode, into a transformer, into an induction coil. They all work basically on the fluctuation of magnetic waves. Then when there's no magnetic wave and no ability for that to survive, it's gone. Now, you're going to say things like, well, it'll be a free-for-all. Well, I don't think so. The governments will have the military on the streets. So there'll be some protection, but it depends. The government will use the military to protect itself and its infrastructure. It won't use it to protect you. So you'll be still at the mercy of the cannibalistic, the now cannibalistic vegans. Now, how will they pay them? Well, they'll pay them in food. It's as simple as that. If you're in the military and I say, what the fuck am I going to patrol the streets for? I'm not getting any money to pay. The banking system's closed down. I'm not going to get any money to protect anyone. They'll pay you in food. Food will be the ultimate currency. Pay attention, Bitcoiners. Not so clever now, are you? Now, hang on to cash as well, because cash will come back into circulation. It's going to take a year, probably, for everything to be fixed up. It's not like it's the end of the world. It will be the end of the world for people who can't manage. It'll be the end of the world for, unfortunately, people on dialysis machines, life support systems, these kinds of things, people who depend on regular medications. This is where the real horror will be. It will be the end of the world for people who have total faith in the system, the NPC normies. They will be all eating each other and cannibalizing each other. And your job during all this is to understand what's happened and to fucking lay low. That's the most important thing. If you have a tractor in the shed, an old Ford tractor, an old Massey Ferguson tractor that works, under no some circumstances, until the initial horror has calmed down, do you put that key in the ignition and start it. Or try to get the battery working. Just stay away from it. Tell no one you have it. If you have lots of food in the house, tell no one. Learn how to eat wild foods. We are surrounded by them. There will be also an abundance of wildlife. You will have things like rabbits everywhere and all kinds of things you can get, games. Now, people have, they can snare, fishing. Now, birds, you can catch eggs. People who think their guns will work, a lot of them won't. So, what you will have is probably what they want on the Georgia Guidestones, an absolute reset to vastly reduce the population, and also to change the balance of the world. Now, it can happen anytime. Hopefully it happens at ironically at the 3:30 a.m. You're probably the safest. Isn't that interesting, isn't it? All the ironic things to this. But a coronal mass ejection is a very real threat to this planet. Always has been and always will be. And I do wonder If more and more, many human beings today don't actually believe, and this is true, that the sun has any effect on this earth. They've been so conditioned by the climate change propaganda that they think that everything on this earth is controlled by carbon dioxide. They have no, they've completely been told to forget about that big ball of fire in the sky, or big ball of plasma or electricity, or whatever its nature is, that creates this belch, this vomit of electromagnetic energy that causes coronal mass ejections. That's what happens. When it happens, as soon as it happens, you go, CMR, fuck, I gotta get home to the kids. Run. Don't go through bad. You'll be okay for the first day or two. Going through bad neighborhoods, going through the city centers. Fucking run, okay? Get home, okay? And get ready to prepare yourself psychologically for the year ahead, okay? So, don't be thinking, then you think to yourself, well, I've got books on survival. Where? Oh, they're on Amazon, my Kindle. Oh. What have I been, why do you think my books have on them? This is a never for Kindle publication. Think about it. You're going to need things to occupy your mind. There'll be no TV, nothing. So you got to keep your kids and your family occupied. Crafts, board games. You will survive. Eventually, after no time, you'll see that the help will come from this part of the world. Hopefully it's not military, but it probably will be. It will bring food and stuff like that. Ships that are on this side of the earth will start making deliveries to here. But this will happen after they've restored law and order. Remember, your survival will be the bottom of the key. The number one survival agenda when a CMR happens will be for politicians and their families to be safe. And corporate CEOs, and you don't care, they'll be looking after themselves, using the army to protect themselves. Be compliant. If the soldier knocks on your door and says, is there anything we can help you, don't go, I'm a rebel. Don't be like Barry Drewmore. I'm fine for the sick. You go, yes, sir, I would like any help you could give me and my family. I'm very compliant and I want to do what you want to do. When you close the door, go, this is how you survive. Not by being a hero, but by being wise and smart and playing their fucking game when they have all the cards. Okay? This is what you do. But a coronal mass ejection is not like... You see, they've also programmed people through Christianity to think when anything will happen, it'll be the end times. No, it won't be the end times. Think of more of it as a reset times. So get your mind as the end of the world. I'm going to see Jesus and all this stuff. Think to yourself, it's going to be a very difficult year. I might be on the other side of a country or another country. And I can't get back to them. All you can try and do is keep yourself alive and hope your family is safe until you're reunited. There will also be people settling scores during this time. This is something that you never hear about, what goes on during wartime. It goes on, but what will happen is, if there are people who have a grievance against a neighbour or someone in town that pissed them off or someone who ripped them off in business, they'll go over there with a knife and cut their throats. A lot of that kind of thing will go on. You need to defend yourself. Machetes, swords, daggers, anything. Keep yourself strong. Lots of protein. Store cheeses. You want to really have a great food that will keep you alive? Cheese. Buy cheeses in bulk. You'll be amazed how much nutrition can keep you going in a cheese. That and foraging, you'll survive quite well. Water can be got from lots of sources. Don't give me this thing, in some states they've made it illegal to collect rainwater. When the system breaks down, there won't be any laws. So you can collect all the water you want. Anything like that you want. This is why I also say people have addictions. Smoking. This kind of thing, alcohol. They're usually the first to crash because they can't get their cigarettes and stuff like that. So they're very, very vulnerable. Chain smokers and things like that. Very, very vulnerable because they need that. They can't think. You ever see when someone's like a chain smoker has it? They're always when they're anxious or something like that. This is why they want you on the weed, because you're useless and it makes you useless. It makes you dependent. And alcohol and all that stuff. Now, there's lots of ways out of it. You can actually end up making your own alcohol after a while. And when it's over, the ones who will survive, and I hope many of you do, will consider it one of the greatest times of your life. Just like people in England who got through World War II, because Hitler didn't actually invade. They did get bombed and everything. But you talk to well, they're all dead now, but when I was growing up, we see interviews on people who survived the Blitz in World War II, and they all said the same thing. It was the happiest time of our lives in many ways. Growing our own vegetables, taking care of ourselves, looking after ourselves, being dependent away from the government. It was better. It was a better time to be alive than when the government and corporations ran everything directly, and you had control over your own life. And so you will actually have that, but it will happen. The coronal mass ejection. I don't know why. It's just been in my mind lately, and I haven't been talking about it. I haven't been watching videos about it. It's just like I woke up a few weeks ago and I started thinking about coronal mass ejections, and I've been thinking about them a lot and a lot since. And yeah, we're way overdue, way overdue. And the irony is, we'll be knocked back probably to the 1930s. So basically, any technology from the 1930s will be functionable, or it can be easily repaired, like a burnt coil. Anyone is, can be fixed. But that brings up another industry. How do you solder something if there's an electronic soldering iron and the power network has gone down? Because remember, that's what will happen. The biggest aftermaths that will happen is there'll be terrible pollution. The nuclear reactors will all go into meltdown, but that's not as bad as it's made. Don't be brainwashed by likes of Chernobyl and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff can't, Fukushima, a lot of that stuff, yeah, it's bad, but it's not as bad as, it's not planet destroying like it's made out to be. That can be solved. Just like it's a nasty thing, but it can be solved. You'll have massive oil slicks. All those tankers out at sea will either break up as they're sinking or smash upon the rocks somewhere. So you'll have huge sea pollution problems. But again, we will fix that. Now, like I said, when this happens, if you must travel at night under the moons in the rural areas. If you live in a city, follow the train tracks. The trains will be all stopped anyway because there'll be just locomotives and coaches and wagons and boxcars just sitting there, and they're linear paths. And remember, train tracks are more direct and straight than roads, and they don't have gradients. They're actually easier to walk on than country roads or even urban roads because they're dead straight, and the gradients are taken out by bridges and cuttings, so you expend less energy when you move along them. And it's where the morons don't go. The morons and the troglodytes and the savages and the cannibals will all be hitting the roads, the main streets, the shops. Then they'll be going to the suburbs, okay? You've got to hide for a while. If you live in an area where you know your neighbours really well, a community in a farming area, you're in a lot more advantage because you can go out and start killing the sheep and the cows in the field to cook them. And they're generally, by the time you think to yourself, like, these warriors from the city will make their way out, they'll die very soon from things like dysentery because they'll be drinking water out of puddles and shores, and they don't know nothing about nutrition, so they won't be taking in salt. You must have lots and lots of salt, not only for spiritual reasons but also for health reasons. Sea salt, bags of it. And they will die, and their muscles will seize up, their brain fog will kick in because they're not getting their regular skunk weed and whiskey and stuff like that. So they'll just shit themselves to death in a field somewhere. See, if you live in a small town or a rural area, you actually have a lot of advantage to that. But even in a city, you can survive. You can survive by being low key. Low key. If you're staying indoors as much as possible, that's really a help. Now, you will learn how to live according to the sun. You'll wake up in the morning when the sun shines, and you go to sleep when it gets dark. You will find yourself and your biological rhythms actually stabilizing better, and you'll be emotionally and psychologically more healthier than someone whose biorhythms are determined by, watching late night chat shows or sports games. You're going to find that it's not as bad as it was made out to be. At first, it'll be really bad for people who are separated from their families and loved ones. There's the emotional crisis of that. You must keep yourself together and assume that your family are okay. And when this system is fixed up, and it will be after a year or so, that a flight or a plane will take you back to your homeland, organized by your government. It will happen. And you'll get home and find that your family survived okay. Maybe they moved in with a relative or a neighbours took care of them and this kind of thing. But you must keep yourself. I mean, I was reading about people who were locked up in World War II, not just Jewish people, but all kinds of Polish people and Greek, Italian people that were locked up in prisoner war camps during World War II. And when the Russians liberated them, they didn't know if their family was alive back in Italy. They literally just started walking back to Italy. So that, from like, from Russia, from Poland, from walking back to Greece, you'll have to do the same kind of thing. If you're on the other side of the world, you're separated by a sea, you're going to have to wait until some kind of transportation thing as comes about. If you're disabled, you're probably going to die. And I don't mean that to be cold or anything like that, but this is how you prepare yourself. This is what's going to happen. Life is not fair. If you're elderly, the same. The first winter will probably kill you. But if you're smart and you're wise and you're a young person in their 20s, you should start thinking in terms of provision for a coronal mass ejection. Not be in fear, not be like Bubba and Goober on the Prepper channel, screaming with his Bible and boasting about how much food he has stored up. Don't be like them, and be wise. This will be your ultimate weapon to survive the CME. This will be your ultimate weapon. And it'll be fine in the end. This is not the apocalypse. This is not the end of the world. This is a natural catastrophe that will happen, that will kill countless millions. And you might not be one of the ones who die. You might be lucky and find yourself on the dark side of the earth. If you're on the dark side of the earth, other than maybe your Pornhub server going down, that's the irony of it. Well, the daylight side of the earth is completely destroyed almost in terms of modern technology. The other side of the earth will be pretty much okay. So they just won't go unfair to get what's on servers over here because they'll be all fried. So they'll probably still have their internet and everything working. Within reason, there will be still problems as well because it doesn't go like that. It curves, it tapers at the back. You'll be sitting like you will things you never thought about. Within a few days, you'll be sitting out in the darkness there, no street lights, no TV, no nothing, sitting outside in the streets, and then all of a sudden you'll see what seem to be meteors falling from the sky. These will be the satellites falling out of orbit. And they will also cause a lot of damage if they hit urban areas because they'll be like a bomb. They will be, some of them will be like an atomic bomb if they hit it. No, not that big, but a massive conventional bomb if they hit an urban area. You'll notice things like that. And then you'll look up and you'll see stars that you've never seen before. And this is the key to survival. You're being transported into a new world. You're seeing stars you'll never see, you'll experience you've never had. You're learning how to collect firewood. You're building a fire at the back. If you're in an apartment building, you're going to be doing things like what they did in World War II, where they literally found a way using biscuit tins and sheet metal to build chimney fires to light a fire in the apartment so the smoke will go out the window. That's what will happen. You'll see things like that, and there will be disasters along the way. It's going to happen, but I would suggest to anyone who lives in a city to get the hell out of it. Get the hell out of it. If you have cousins or friends in the countryside, arrange beforehand. Don't show up on their door saying, "We've nothing to eat and nothing to do. Can you take care of us?" They'll be still trying to survive themselves. And if they were smart enough to go and leave the city, they shouldn't be punished for it. You should bring something to help them or in advance make an agreement. But I can assure you that this is probably the most important video some of you will ever watch because many of you watching this within your lifetime will experience a coronal mass ejection and you'll be on the wrong side of the earth when it happens. And when it does happen, don't go mental. Be wise. Take care.